The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is 100% information security a myth? And our guest speaker today is S.R. Kannan. He's the Global Head Security Services with Mindtree Limited. S.R. Kannan has a total of 14 years of experience in the information security domain. He has worked for CIFI Limited, Tata Communications, Verizon Business, and helped them build their security services business. Over the past decade, he has built high-performance teams in the areas of business development, channel management, security technology deployment, security consulting services, and security operations center management. In Mindtree, he is right now in the process of building the security services business by partnering with the various IGs and delivery teams within Mindtree. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Kannan.
Thank you, Aradhana. Good evening, friends. Thanks for logging in. The subject I am going to deal with, as you know, is a high interest subject these days with both business as well as individual interactions related activities increasingly moving to the web and internet becoming the tool of choice for most of us. Enterprises are grappling with the question, how effectively can you secure your information and your data? Is 100% information security possible, or is it a myth? That is the subject we are going to discuss today and see how enterprises and individuals can better secure their data and information. I'm sure all of you are reading newspapers, magazines, and various websites where these exploits are being published on a daily basis. The latest being Target, which is a retail chain in the US, lost hundreds of thousands of credit card customers' data to hackers. And such data can be used for e-commerce transactions illegally. Similarly, we know LinkedIn some time back sent an email to 3/4 of their customers requesting them to change their password because they were worried the passwords of majority of their customers had been compromised. I'm just giving two examples here. The examples, as you know, are in the hundreds. Another example of a high-profile person getting hit. Imagine Sonia Gandhi's website getting defaced. Recently, Mr. Kapil Sibal's website was defaced. So imagine the loss of image for these people. They are all very high-profile people, very powerful people the whole world knows about. And if their website goes down for a couple of hours, or if their website is defaced, just imagine the loss of image for them. So whether it be stealing credit card data or ensuring your image is defaced, hackers are resorting to many malicious activities which can really damage the enterprise or the individual concerned. This is an example I am presenting of a guy. I don't know how many of you have heard of Kevin Mitnick. he was a very popular hacker in the 1990s. Many of you might have read, or some of you might have read about his exploits. Some of his high-profile exploits included he hacked into Pentagon's payroll system. Imagine how difficult it will be to hack into a payroll system of any enterprise. And he managed to hack into Pentagon's payroll system. Pentagon, as you know, is the US security enterprise, the US defense enterprise. Defense operations of US are run from the Pentagon. And imagine someone managing to enter the payroll system of that enterprise. He routinely stole source code from big enterprises like Sun and made number of unauthorized entries into the network of number of high-profile institutions like Microsoft, Nokia, etc. So while some of you might have read about these exploits, one question I want to ask. He was so dangerous. The FBI had him arrested. The FBI went to a court and got an order banning him from going near a computer for 3 years, because the FBI established he is extremely dangerous if he starts accessing a computer. So the court said he is not supposed to go anywhere near a computer for 3 years. Imagine getting a restraining order from going near a computer. That's what the FBI did to restrain Kevin Mitnick. But going back to the question I asked earlier, how did he do it? Because to gain access into the payroll system of the security enterprise of US is not easy. So what is the technique? Did he use some high-tech software to carry out these exploits? What the FBI found out was it actually wasn't as high-tech as they imagined it to be. It was far simpler. He used a technique called social engineering. Despite being a technical wizard, for him to get the credentials to enter these secure networks, what he did was he used to call into these enterprises, act as the technical help desk guy, calling from that enterprise's technical help desk, say hi to the employee and tell the employee malicious activity has been noticed in that employee's system. So they are checking what is happening, for which they need that employee's user ID password. And you won't believe it, most employees parted with their user ID password to Kevin Mitnick, who was masquerading as a technical help desk engineer of that organization. So once he got these user ID passwords, he could log into any system he wanted. And that is how he went into these highly secure networks and systems and played havoc. I don't know how many of you have read this recent exploit by an unknown person. Now, Bitcoin is increasingly gaining relevance and popularity as a currency to be used in the internet world by bidding for it and using it for transactions. The largest Bitcoin exchange has closed down and declared bankruptcy a week back. It's called Mt. Gox. The reason they have done that is they have been subject of a denial of service attack and their website has been brought down. So they cannot conduct their business because somebody has entered their site, and you won't believe it, stolen 3/4 billion worth of Bitcoins. So this apparently transacted 60% of Bitcoin in transactions worldwide. So in one exploit, they have stolen 3/4 billion worth of Bitcoins and they have closed down the largest exchange for bitcoins in the world. This is a very, very recent exploit, a week old. Some exploits I have shared with you. There are also some exploits which you guys would have read. I don't know how many of you read the great Test cricketer VVS Lakshman lost 10 lakhs of rupees 1 month back when someone entered his bank account and transferred that money to a Calcutta bank account. Ultimately, using the cyber trail, that thief was caught. So like that, there are numerous examples many of you are aware of. So all these exploits, is there actually a common thread running through these exploits? What is the common thread? And what is the role of the CXO level officers, the CEO, the CIO, the CFO in mitigating such activities, ensuring their websites, their data, their information is kept secure? A trend which has been noticed over the past few years. Earlier, these hackers were just doing it for fun. They just used to bring down a system and then bring it up again. They didn't do it for gaining money, gaining popularity, or for any other malicious reason. But what is happening now? I told you the example of the Bitcoin exchange. I gave you the example of Target's website being targeted, credit card information being stolen. So what is now being seen is these hackers are professionals who are intent on real damage, damaging businesses, bringing down businesses, ensuring that commerce is affected in the internet world. They are increasingly also targeting up to the desktop. Imagine your desktop, your laptop, your endpoint being hacked into and your personal information being stolen from it. Imagine your personal pictures, your family pictures being taken away from your laptop and morphed and put in some public website, extent to which your image will get affected, and those exploits have started. No more are hackers just sticking to the perimeter or to just the servers. They are able to get into deeper, even up to the laptop level of individual employees. This is increasingly happening because, as you know, employees are using different types of devices to access data, like mobile phones, like iPads. Employees are accessing data from any part of their city, any part of their country, and the threats that we are witnessing are also becoming increasingly complicated. But have you ever wondered why some of these are happening? Why increasingly we are being subject to such threats? What has been established is increasingly disruptive technologies are becoming order of the day. One real example which we have seen is ATM. ATM is a disruptive technology. It helped banks distribute monies very quickly around the corner from where the customer is living. Most of you listening to this webinar, I'm sure, have been born and brought up by using ATMs right from an early age, whereas some people like me were used to visiting the bank branch to collect money from our account. ATM came into play when I was in my 30s. So till I reached my 30s, I used to go to the bank branch to collect money. So what did that ensure? That ensured the money I collected from the bank branch could never be stolen. I used to put it in my wallet, come out, get onto my bike or car and drive home. But whereas ATMs, what has that led to? While it has made it convenient, it has led to attacks in ATMs. Some of you have been seeing specific footage, CCTV footage of a lady being attacked in Bangalore, another guy being attacked in Bombay, and money being stolen from them. See, that is a typical example of a risk opening up because of a new technology which is convenient but leading to a risk. So companies, when they are introducing such technologies, many of them are not even aware of what are the risks that are being opened up. Particularly, companies are not aware of high impact, low frequency risks. The example of the Bitcoin exchange. Imagine what is a high impact risk that Bitcoin exchange faced. One attack, 3/4 of $1 billion was stolen. Period. The exchange has been shut down and they have declared bankruptcy. So that's the example of a high impact, low frequency. Low frequency because probably it will happen once, but when it happens, the company shuts down. That is how dangerous high impact, low frequency risks can be. And normally enterprises don't factor for it in their security measures and their plans for securing their data. Companies similarly do not factor for interrelationships between different types of risks. See the example of the ATM I gave you. So operationally it made it convenient. So operationally they opened it up for customers to access. But that opened up a risk which is a physical risk of the customer being accosted and money being stolen from the customer inside the ATM. Like that, e-commerce, internet transactions being allowed, very, very convenient for you and me. But what is the risk that is thrown up because of that? Somebody can easily access your user ID password and ensure they carry out transactions masquerading as you and siphon away lakhs of rupees from your account. So when you open up new services, you also need to be aware of what are the different types of risks that you're opening up and factor for them and ensure security around them. Very important, most companies believe a firewall here, an antivirus there, and security story is complete. I have ensured I put Cisco technology as far as the firewall is concerned. I put McAfee or Norton as far as antivirus is concerned. And as I've got the best technology, I am secure. Nothing can be done against me. But that is an extremely fallacious line of thought, because the example of Kevin Mitnick, which I gave you, he called to the Pentagon, masqueraded as Pentagon's technical help desk employee, and managed to get user ID password from some highly secure Pentagon employees. Why did that happen? Because people working in Pentagon were not trained to safeguard their credentials. So most cases enterprises do not factor for how the person behind the system can do things which can bring down their network or lead to hacking of their network. So what really is required to ensure close to total security of data and information is, other than technology, you also need to have the right people, well-trained people, and process in place. A simple example, a firewall is required to protect your perimeter, but you also need to have a process to keep looking at the policies you have built into your firewall and keeping them dynamic, keeping them updated. Unless you have a process for that, the policies can become outdated and someone can hack into and steal data. So that's how important process is important in management of your security. So while installation of good technology is very important, you also need to optimize the functioning of that by aligning people, process, and technology with the security vision you got and the security plan that you got, and only then you can reap the full benefits of the technologies you have put in place. Another important point, every stakeholder involved in the security lifecycle in an enterprise needs to know what are the different types of risks. A common risk language needs to be developed and stakeholders need to be made aware. What is a strategic risk? What is an operational risk? What is a financial risk? What is an external risk? These are all different categories of risks which you can be subject to. When you decide on a strategy, implement a strategy, you are actually subject to strategic risk, which can lead to problems for you later on. You need to be aware what those risks are and take care of it. Operational risks, again, when you're opening up your transactions to the internet, what are the risks involved? What are the operational risks involved? You need to be aware of it and take care of it. External risks. Who are the people? What types of external attacks can you be subject to? So how do you factor for it? How many of you know or you have read about the WTC Twin Towers going down? Do you know how many businesses were shut down because of that? Because they did not have a DCP-DR. They had their data center in the Twin Towers, and once the towers collapsed, their entire business collapsed for several months, because of which they lost their brand image, customer loyalty, and they had to shut down their business. That's an external risk. Two planes coming in, crashing into two towers can actually bring down a business which is tens of years old. Like that, there are a number of examples. So you need to be aware what such risks are. Similarly, financial risks. The decisions you take around finance, the decisions you take around vendor payments, these are all financial risks which you are subject to, which you need to be aware of and take care of. As far as IT is concerned, what are the different types of risks? The different types of risks in IT operations are typical IT security risks, some of which we have already spoken about. Availability risk, which is availability of your network, availability of systems, availability of your website when your customer wants it, when your employee wants it, is a IT risk. Performance risk, the latencies involved in accessing your website, the latency involved in your network being available to your employees. These are all performance risks. Is it slowing down, because of which employees are not able to access important systems? Is it slowing down because of which customers are not able to access your website? That's a performance risk. Compliance risk. In India, there aren't as many, but in Western countries, there are laws which you are subject to. If you are a bank, you are subject to a GLBA law. If you are insurance in the healthcare sector, you are subject to HIPAA. Most Fortune 100 companies are subject to Sarbanes-Oxley. So these are all laws you are subject to, which you have to comply with. And the CEO can be arrested if he or she doesn't comply with these laws. And that's a risk the CEO is putting himself or herself to. That is being aware of the compliance activities and the laws and ensuring you fall in line around them. So these are some of the IT risks you can be subject to. And what is the CIO's task? We started this presentation saying it's 100% security possible. Increasingly, what is becoming aware is, while 100% may not be possible, the CIO and CISO, they need to ensure this cube, which is the risk cube, which is subject to threats from the vulnerabilities in your applications, the vulnerabilities in your assets, and threats from outside. You need to ensure this risk size is brought down as you move forward in your security life cycle. That really is the role of the CIO and the CISO. You need to ensure you're constantly bringing down the size of this cube. That is, the exposure to risk is being brought down step by step. Increasingly, CEOs are moving from the earlier paradigm of let's start the business, let's start the activities. In course of time, let's assess the risks. Now they are moving to business is important, new activities are definitely important, but you also need to assess risks as you venture into new businesses, new types of operations, and have processes in place to manage these risks, and only then launch new types of operations, new businesses. So increasingly CIOs, CISOs are becoming sensitive to this, because they realize if they don't do this, one attack can make them lose their job, can make their company lose its image, and can lead to serious financial drain for the company. So risk management program is required, where it is actually a cycle. PDCA as it is called. You need to ensure you are constantly checking, coming out with new measures, and again feeding this back into the cycle, so that you are following a quality-like methodology in managing security also. How secure is the usage of user ID and password? See, we have all been brought up on this, isn't it? We believe most companies give us the user ID password for accessing various systems, various assets, various sensitive data. But is this really a secure method? How many phishing attacks have been witnessed where individuals and employees have inadvertently divulged their user ID passwords to hackers? What is the phishing attack? You will get a link which is masquerading as your bank's link. You log in and you enter your user ID password. What has actually happened is your traffic has been routed to a illegal server where your user ID password has been captured. So what you logged into was not your ICICI Bank's link or website. It is a malicious website. And this routinely happens. It happens every day. So what you are seeing is user ID password can be compromised. I have given examples of other ways. You can have a man in the middle where there is a spyware sitting and reading your keystrokes as you type your user ID password on your laptop or desktop. So increasingly organizations are trying to find out what then is a more secure way to enable access to systems. What organizations are finding is one good way is a two-factor authentication system. Some of you might be already exposed to the RSA token way of accessing systems, where your access is based on what you know and what you have principle. That is, you have a token which gives you a passcode, a different passcode every minute. And that is what you have, which is dynamic. What you know is your PIN, which is your personal identification number. So when you want to access, you first type in the PIN, then press the button on your RSA token, get the dynamic passcode, enter it, and start accessing your system. You log out, you enter the system, half an hour later, you need a new passcode. So if someone has seen the earlier passcode, he cannot use it because that passcode has become irrelevant. So this is much more secure than a static user ID password based access. And this has an added advantage of you need not memorize passwords, which is again a painful thing. And very important, it gives an audit trail. Particularly banks, even the internal employee can be malicious. So how do you establish who has come in and done something malicious? So this very clearly will establish which token was used for this access. And each token, as you know, is tied to the specific employee. So that employee can be brought to book. He cannot escape saying something happened which I don't know how it happened. So that is an additional advantage of two-factor authentication. Having said this and having talked about the threats that enterprises are subject to and the worries the CIO, CISO have got in protecting their data, several surveys have been done to check with the CIO how effectively he or she is managing information security. So across the world, what they seem to be saying is, we are mostly good and effective as far as technology deployments are concerned. Buying the best firewall, buying the best antivirus system, buying the best two-factor system, we are good. We are able to invest, deploy it, and get it up and going. But what we are not good at is managing processes in maintaining these systems. I gave you one example earlier. A firewall management system needs to have a change management process inbuilt in it, which relooks at the policies and keeps changing the policies as per new systems, new services introduced by the company. That is an example of a process. Like that, CIOs are saying we don't have robust processes, dynamic processes to take care of security. And almost all of them agreed, unless you work on the process front and the people front, you cannot become great as far as securing your information, securing your data is concerned. That's how important people and process are. Given that awareness, most of them seem to be aware what are the challenges. But when you ask them in their day-to-day job, what they find as the key headaches, the top 5 emerging across CIOs are, my CFO is asking me to contain costs. I don't have an unlimited budget to ensure data security. I find a holistic strategy is not being developed. The marketing head is developing his own plans to open up business to customers. The CEO is chasing revenues, so he is coming up with his own strategies to enhance revenues of the company. The CFO is hell-bent on safeguarding monies, ensuring that budgets are not overshot, so he is developing plans around that. So with this disparate set of plans and strategies developed by the Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, who is thinking of an enterprise-wide IT security policy, IT security strategy, which actually takes a look at all these disparate points and weaves them into an overall information security strategy. Is that happening? No. Staffing is a problem. We are finding it difficult to get skilled security engineers, knowledgeable security engineers. We are finding that IT is not aligned to business. Departments and functions are functioning in silos. There is a lot of regulatory and compliance issues which I am not even aware of. I even don't know whether I could be arrested for a law which I am not even aware of. This is a big pain area in the US. So the CIO, despite knowing he needs to safeguard, he is not up to mark, is facing these challenges which he has to do battle with and also secure his data and information. So what should he or she do? What is the best practice? Number one, what increasingly is being seen is the best practice is to have an integrated management program. Don't operate in silos. Make sure your information security program meshes with the compliance activities as well as other IT plans that you have got. Everything needs to go hand in hand. Number 2, be proactive. Conduct VAPT, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing drills on your applications proactively and patch the vulnerabilities proactively before they are being used by hackers. Ensure you test and keep assessing these vulnerabilities in an ongoing manner. Invest in cloud-based technologies. Try and manage this at the cloud level itself. Zscaler, which our company uses, is a cloud-based technology where they filter various sites and employees are not allowed to access any site that they want to, and the filtration is done at the cloud level itself. Ensure there are identity management, identity protection systems in place, and this again is one good way of protecting sensitive information and sensitive data. Defense in depth is another method. At every level of the system chain, ensure you have protection. Don't think it's enough if you have a perimeter firewall protection. It's enough if you have a antivirus in your server. You actually have to start at the cloud level and keep coming down till you reach the innermost core of your network and systems. And you need to have protection at every level to keep these threats out. So point solutions are not enough. You need to have continuous chain of solutions. And very important, your long-term strategy, how it meshes with your human resources development, training, sensitization, how it meshes with your outsourcing, what kind of vendors are being allowed to come and help you. Are those vendors part of your security program? If you are ISO 27001 certified, are you also asking your vendors to be ISO 27001 certified? Otherwise, allowing them to come and access, you're opening up a back door. Someone can use that vendor system to come in and create havoc inside your network. So these are all some best practice activities measures CIOs can take up to ensure reasonably good information security and data security. Cloud level protection I spoke about. Our company has Zscaler. Like that DDoS attack, which is denial of service, bringing a customer website down, bringing the entire business down. So again, this attack needs to be prevented at the cloud level. As the attack is progressing in the cloud, coming towards your website, you need to stop it. That's the best way of preventing this. You can't allow this to progress till it hits your website, and there are technologies available for this. So what you have really ensured is preventing it from even coming near your door. And by doing that, you have protected your organization's business and reputation. I spoke about proactively managing vulnerabilities. So do you have a vulnerability management program in place? Do you have regular VAPT? Because as you know, as soon as a vulnerability is discovered, the hacker goes after it. And what is being seen is many vulnerabilities, the hackers attack it within 30 minutes of the vulnerability becoming known, which means practically the window of opportunity is very, very quick. As soon as the vulnerability information is out, someone is using it to hack in real time instantaneously, which means you need to be having a program which instantaneously tracks these vulnerabilities in your applications and patches them. This is again a view of what you are facing in terms of threats. Increased hacker activity. There are regulations because of laws. The internet is increasingly becoming relevant for businesses. You can't keep away from it. You have to open up your network to your vendors, to your employees, to your partners through a VPN access. So someone sitting somewhere in a remote location is actually accessing your system, and you can't say no because your business depends on it. So like this, many conditions are actually coming together which can lead to a perfect storm if you are not careful. So which is where the CIO, CISO needs to take up some of these best practices. Some of this we spoke about earlier. An example, you need to give information to employees only based on what they need to know. Don't give every information to every employee. Are you monitoring violations? See, somebody is trying to access a server illegally. Are you keeping track how many such attempts are being made in a day? How many such attempts are being made in a week? Is that metric being tracked? So like that, there are a number of matrices you can develop and use. User account management. The user accounts, particularly user accounts of high-profile employees, of top management, is that being reviewed periodically? Is someone trying to hack into those? Because those are sensitive employees. So is someone trying to use their credentials to do something nasty? You should keep checking for that periodically. Training. You need to have a training schedule for every employee and ensure you log training hours for every employee every year. Are you keeping track of that as a metric? While you can believe that you are doing a good job, what increasingly is becoming known, CIOs are becoming aware, is you are fooling yourself if you are not having metrics and tracking those metrics. Unless you measure periodically, you really don't know whether you are managing it properly or not. The amount of downtime caused by security incidents. Keep track of this, measure this month on month, every year, see whether this is coming down. The number of intrusions detected and prevented. Keep track of this. The number of violations prevented. Keep track of this. The time taken to handle an incident from the alerting stage to the stopping stage. Keep track of this. The number of vulnerabilities detected, highly severe vulnerabilities detected, and how quickly did you patch them. Keep track of it. Again, what I have given here are illustrative. This is definitely not exhaustive, but you need to have certain metrics. You need to identify key metrics like these and keep measuring them and flashing them to key stakeholders. Because only if you keep holding up the mirror, you will know what are the new pimples which have come in your face and how you need to clear them. So these matrices and these reports and dashboards serve the purpose of showing to you how good you are and what are the improvements you need to do to ensure you are moving towards higher level of information security, higher level of data security. Let me finish with a very startling example. ICICI Bank has got the most high-tech, the most expensive security systems in the world. They do tracking of what is happening in their network every day. They have IDS systems, and during a typical month of the log review of their IDS system, what they noticed was 3,000 plus attempts were being made to intrude into their network and servers in a month's time. Imagine, that is 100 plus during a day. More importantly, these 3,000 plus were not coming from 300 different IP addresses, which could have meant that just hackers who want to have fun are trying to attack. No, what was happening was majority was coming from 3 IP addresses, which means someone was in a focused manner trying to come in and steal valuable information from ICICI Bank. Despite going back to their service provider, internet service provider, despite trying various tricks, they could not source the trace of these attacks because they were hiding behind proxies and they were hiding in countries which did not allow tracking down of these IP addresses. So this is a real life single example of how real threats in the internet world is. So the question that needs to be uppermost in the minds of CIOs, CISOs is, whatever you might be doing, whatever investments you have made, are you fully protected? Are you really protected? With that, I've come to the end of my session. We can now open up for questions.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Karan. Request you to read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your insights. So you would be able to see the questions
Sure.
in the doc.
Okay. Good question from Rahul. Is it possible if banks allocate a RSA like hardware token to users for net banking? Good question, Rahul. Yes. ABN AMRO has already issued tokens, RSA tokens. ICICI Bank has tested this for high net worth individual accounts where they have issued tokens. So there are banks, I am just giving you two examples. There are other banks which have already done it with their customers, but the key issue they are facing is the investment involved, because they can't ask the customer to pay for it. So how much will be the investment per customer? And imagine someone like ICICI Bank, tens of thousands of customers who are accessing internet for their banking transactions, each of them being issued a password. How much it will cost ICICI Bank? That is one of the key reasons which is preventing banks from using this technology for their customers. Next question is from Om Prakash. What types, sir, of security should we implement in the case of a college internet access system? Well, typically user ID passwords is what is being used in colleges, and that seems to be more or less okay, because again colleges cannot invest much in technology and they have to train their students not to divulge these user ID password, keep it secure so that the college systems are not compromised. Because college systems are also being targeted for hackers, because if you bring down the network of, let's say, one of the Indian Institutes of Management, imagine the publicity you will get. So definitely colleges also have to secure their networks in a better manner. Any other questions?
Yes, other questions list are coming up slowly and steadily. So are you able to see the questions now?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, this is a good question from Abhishek. How far encryption of network traffic help in data security, and is it being done by default? By the firewall? Or if not, how do you incorporate it? Yes, good question. Encryption definitely helps prevent someone reading into the packet when the packet is traversing the net and stealing what is inside the packet. So definitely encryption, and increasingly 3-DES encryption is being used so that it is difficult to crack the encryption code and get into the packet. And most firewall technologies offer as part of their VPN solution, where you can encrypt and transmit the data when the data leaves the firewall. So most enterprise level firewall technologies allow encryption, and you have to enable VPN transaction, encrypted VPN in the firewall for you to take advantage of it. And it does protect the data, Abhishek, when the data is traversing the net. Vijay Chauhan. social engineering attacks, his question is, are they restricted to stealing credentials only, or can they be used for other types of malicious activities? Yes, definitely. Because at the end of the day, social engineering is about masquerading as an employee, coming in and doing something malicious. So definitely it can be used for other types also. It's not just to steal credentials. Next question, Lakshman. I have heard of attacks like XSS, SQL injection, etc. on the web applications. Yes. There is a whole big list in terms of what kind of application level attacks are typically used. Yeah.
Mr. Khan, I'm really sorry to disturb you. Can you please read out the question?
Yeah, I just did that. The question was, what type of application attacks, common application attacks are popular? Can you throw some light on it? So this has been asked by Lakshman. So there are cross-site scripting is a very, very popular attack. SQL injection, which you yourself have put down, is a very popular attack. Like that, there are 4 to 5 different types of popular attacks which are used at the application level, for which you need to protect against, which you can do by doing regular vulnerability assessment, identifying those vulnerabilities which allow these cross-site scripting, SQL injection kind of attacks, and ensure they are patched in real time for you to prevent such exploits from damaging you. Next question is from Kumar. How do we create security KPIs? Very good point. That businesses can understand. Yes. See, preparing matrices, KPIs, key performance indicators, is a very involved activity. And you need to get into a collaborative mode with your customers' CIO organization. You need to understand what are the key performance metrics. Let's say e-commerce organization. Very clearly availability of the site, very clearly performance of the site. I am just giving 2 examples. There are other matrices also which are important for e-commerce organizations. But performance, availability are 2 metrics you need to keep track of. And ensure you keep track of this with a periodicity and flash that report to the CIO. So like that, you sit with the CXO organization, understand their business, find out what will affect them, impact them, and develop your matrices around that. It needs to be business centric rather than technology or service provider centric. That is the rule as far as developing KPIs are concerned. Good question from Vamsi. What framework or standard will help check these issues? Again, there is no silver bullet here. Typically, ISO 27001, we have found, looks at the various domains, various areas like communications management, like physical security, like BCPDR, etc., etc. These are all some domains which you need to take actions around for you to become more secure. Like this ISO 27001, which is a worldwide standard, has domains, listed down domains around which if you take actions, you are reasonably well secure. And most organizations are taking it up and ensuring that they are putting in place processes around ISO 27001 and also getting certified for it. Next question. What is the balanced approach you would like to follow in order to target security services? So by that, I understand you mean what kind of steps the CIO, CISO has to take to ensure he does not miss out on any area. Like I shared with you earlier, you need to ensure your plans are tied to your business plans, business goals, and business strategy. Your IT security plans need to be tied to your business strategies, business goals. And whatever you take up and do needs to have actions around technology, people, and process. You need to ensure you are having initiatives, taking up actions, and doing activities around all these three pillars of information security, which is people, process, and technology. Next question from Vamshidhar. How can they secure as they don't believe much in investing in security? Well, you're right, Vamshi. Looks like you have exposure to customers. Yeah, because most customers, as I said earlier, they have a budget constraint. Their CFO doesn't allow them to spend endlessly. So when you go make this presentation which I made to you now, they nod their head, they accept whatever you say, but they say, we have already got a firewall, we have antivirus systems, we have some IDS systems here and there. So come back, Kannan, after a few months, let's discuss. Right now we believe we don't need more. So the only way to tackle this is through education, by giving case studies, by giving examples of how similar enterprises have got hit. And you will find you will strike the right chord if you do that. Yeah, Vamsi, that's what I answered. ISO 27001 is a standard. Like that, there are frameworks and standards available which will help the CIO overcome these threats. Next question from Sridhar. How to get experience in the information security domain and get employed in this domain, which already has experience in IT industry? Yes, there are specific professional certifications available for you to become a knowledgeable IT security expert. CISSP is one. CISA is another, Certified Information Security Auditor. Certified Information Security and Systems Professional, that is CISSP. Then ISO 27001 Lead Auditor, Lead Implementer. So these are 4 or 5 good professional certifications available. Typically, many of these are conducted by institutes where you attend a program for a week, 10 days, and at the end of it, clear the certification exam. So ISACA is one institution which provides CISA courses. BSI, British Standards Institution, is another which provides courses and certification programs around ISO 27001. So you have to take up such programs and get those certifications to be acknowledged as an expert and become an expert. How secure is OTP in online transactions? Vivek, it is definitely more secure than a static user ID password based access. But it also has got drawbacks. If you lose, what happens? You can't do much about it, isn't it? But among the available technologies, when you give access to people, sensitive systems and servers, OTP remains a good system and reasonably secure system which most organizations continue to use. Aftab, yes, you need to, the question is what precautions one should take while using free applications available. Precautions you need to take is by checking whether these free applications are compatible with your mobile device and are certified for use with your mobile device. Because all these people, Apple, Samsung, they also release these findings. Ensure that you can use it without any worries. Unless you're sure of that, please do not download and start using any and every application that is available, because many of those are malicious applications which can compromise your personal data. So you have to check with your mobile device provider before starting to use these applications. Yashwant is talking about the different types of security encryption, security technologies of data available. How far secure is it? Yes, this is something which is a journey, as I said, Yashwant. You need to keep running to stay in the same place. That's how dynamic this scenario is. So while you can use what you think is the best, it may not be enough because someone might come up with an exploit which can even attack and compromise that. So you need to ensure you are in the loop as far as latest processes, technologies are concerned, and see how you can make use of them. The last question I am taking from Sushil, it's 6 o'clock. What precautions should we take while using cyber cafes for accessing mail, bank accounts? Very, very important question. I don't think any precaution is enough if you are using a bank account from a cyber cafe. My request would be use cyber cafes for chat with friends, maybe at best to access your Yahoo Mail. Please do not use cyber cafe systems for checking your bank accounts or doing any banking related transactions, because these are public systems and spyware can be resident in them, and you can have your user ID passwords compromised and someone can start using it in a malicious manner. So any public system like a cyber cafe system, don't use it for activities which are financial in nature and sensitive in nature. That would be my advice. So with that, we come to an end. So those of you are employees, you have my ID. Yeah, Aradhana?
Yes, so due to time constraint, as you have already mentioned, we would like to close the session for today. If you would like to sum up the session and give a final feedback to the audience who have come here.
Yeah, I am through, guys and girls. If you have doubts, please email me. You can get my email ID and I will answer through email. All the best. Be aware of these activities and threats so that when you are exposed and when the question which Sushil asked have a potential problem like trying to access a banking account from a cyber cafe, you don't do it because you are forewarned now. And being forewarned is half the battle won. Thanks a lot. All the best.
And I'm really thankful to our guest speaker today for conducting this wonderful webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Kanar, for all your time and information. Have a great evening ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the help, Aradhana. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, bye.